For today, you read most of this book. Did you succeed in reading it? I'll start with you.
Me?
Yes.
Part of it.
Part of how much? I stopped on page 120.
I didn't make it quite that far.
No? How far?
I don't know exactly.
And you?
I didn't start it.
You didn't start. How far did you get? Do it?
150.
150? Good.
I read page 22.
22.
I made it to page 82.
82?
And started.
Didn't start. 50? Didn't start. You weren't here last time either.
Correct.
About 100, I think.
100.
I've read the whole thing, but not recently.
And we know what that means.
I guess I got, I don't know, into the 80s or 90s.
80s, 90s.
I
It's sort of like
I
that.
read the
It's-
DL section. pretty
it's- yeah, it's
carefully, but
hard
the
to get-
Tsongkhapa's,
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
a little, it's kind of like swimming through mud.
Yeah, it is. He shifts topics so quickly, and you have to know why. You have to figure out why he's shifting topic. What's going on in his mind? You have to start imagining his mind.
I made it to 122.
120, that seems to be a favorite number.
I got up to the Vajrayana section, so it's about...
Now, that's pretty late.
No, it's...
Oh, that's not?
No.
Oh, in the DL section?
Within the Dalai Lama section?
Uh,
Ah, yeah, okay.
I read part of it and I read the back, the synopsis
By Hopkins,
by Hopkins.
which comes from Bendentrije, the Kalka Mongolian. I think it does, doesn't it? I didn't read it.
It is a hard book.
Is it? Isn't it?
The
Kalka Mongolian? Some of it, anyway. And, yes, sir?
Copying myself.
I spent the weekend catching up on all the other reading.
You mean other courses?
No, I mean this course.
Oh. And?
I'm going to start it.
Yeah.
I brought it with me.
Right. Hey. So, is it this Thursday or next Tuesday that you're giving a paragraph or two on the, Next Tuesday?
It's supposed to be this Thursday.
This
or
Thursday?
Next Tuesday.
Okay, this Thursday is fine. Let's do it this Thursday, that you're handing in 1 or 2 paragraphs on what you're on your paper topic. And let's finish. It's sort of as you get behind, it gets more behind, doesn't it? Finish the Tsongkhapa section of well, not the, through one, let's see. Again, make sure that you've read through 150 of Tantra in Tibet, plus, I've stopped writing these down. The Hopkins part of it, 173 to 200. Really? Is that what that is? Yeah, 173 to 200. And then for next Tuesday, what will the date be?
The 31st.
The tantric, the second half of the tantric distinction, which is the same topic of the difference between sutra and tantra, and tantra in Tibet, pages 210 to 214. Now, also for the 31st of October, please hand in 8 quotes. This, you see, gets you on your paper. 8 quotes of different opinions on what Tantra is. As from the library, either from that material or other material that you have.
Hindu as well as Buddhist, or?
Buddhist. Or general Tantra, okay? It could be Eliade saying Tantra is. Okay, clear enough? You don't have to explain the difference with Sangha. Just 8, okay?
My quote,
And with that question with regard to the paper, yes, indeed, in the paper's site, it was 10, right? 10 other opinions, whether they're agreeing or disagreeing. Yes?
By 8 quotes, are we looking for like 2, 3 sentence sort of,
Yeah.
succinct
Right,
statements?
right.
Okay.
All from things other than what we've been looking at in this class?
Yes. But have you picked up the material that's in the bookstore, the new packet?
Is it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll open it up.
There's a whole lot of sources that are indicated there. Plus, there are a whole lot on reserve for this course, which is the easiest way. It's 2-hour reserve. You can pretty much just open the books wherever you like.
Look up T in the back. Just write something.
Sorry, it's great.
And don't just, you might look at what Lopez has done in his MA thesis, but of course don't copy the ones from Lopez. You could get 15 or 20 rather easily from him, but you'll see the type of thing there, right? Okay,
Is that on reserve as well?
yes. It's 2-hour reserve, just because there are so many people who need to use it. Then, what do you want to talk about in terms of what you've just read?
I had one question about, see if I can remember the context of the difference in method between Hinayana and Mahayana, that it was motivation and the deeds, and I'm not sure how motivation is a method. It seems like motivation. Isn't it wiser to go for Buddhahood? To have.
Yes, it's wiser.
So in that sense, isn't motivation then wisdom, not method? Right.
Yeah, I mean, there are overlaps between the two,
Yeah.
but love, compassion, the wish to attain enlightenment are not methods for destroying the afflictive emotions. They will enhance the wisdom consciousness so that it can overcome also the obstructions to omniscience.
It seems like they are.
So from what point of view are love and compassion, the altruistic intention to become enlightened, in the great vehicle on the one hand, and the intention to get out of sickly existence yourself, meanly yourself, on the other, from what point of view are they called method? From what point of view are they called method? One explanation that I got was the wisdom of all 3 vehicles is the same.
Right.
And this Lama sexistly compared this to the way a child's lineage is determined in Mongolia or Tibet. The mother is the same, but she had 3 husbands. one Mongolian, one Tibetan, and one Indian. And the lineage of the child is determined by the father. So similarly, the mother wisdom is the same in all three vehicles. Very interesting that the female is wisdom. The mother is the same in all three vehicles. And the father is this technique, this method, that determines what kind of enlightenment you're going to get out of practicing the wisdom. Remember? It's from that point of view that it's called method. Now you have to admit that wisdom is a method for overcoming obstructions. Clear. But from what point of view is a particular usage of the term method given to motivation and the practices incumbent upon that motivation or induced by that motivation? It's because that motivation and those practices determine what that wisdom will yield. Just as the father's lineage in these sexist societies determine whether, you're Mongolian, Tibetan, or Indian.
Could you explain then what, in the Vajra Panjara Tantra, when it says that if emptiness were a method, then Buddhahood could not be? I mean, that.
If emptiness were the only method that there wasn't, emptiness is wisdom, it's not method. If emptiness were both wisdom and method, then there'd be no way to get Buddhahood. Because you need method, that is to say, love, compassion, the altruistic intention to become enlightened, the yoga. That's what it means.
But also wisdom is a method.
Well,
In a sense.
wisdom is not method in the division of practices into wisdom and method. But one has to recognize it is a method for overcoming obstructions. Yeah. The words are very hard to read.
Yeah.
It's really odd that they chose to use the term upaya for compassion. But it probably does come out, compassion or the wish just to achieve your own enlightenment. But it probably does come out of this sexist thing of, that the Lama said. I don't think he was just making it up. That happens too. People with hindsight make up things to make a system fit. Now, why? It's very interesting once we get on the sexist thing. Compassion and so forth, with respect to compassion and so forth, the primary identification is with women and the nurturing, the mother's nurturing. And the way a mother cares, it's said, for her own sweet child. Has to be sweet. Soul sweet child. If you have a single child, a child is very close, then, at least when the mother's pleased with the child, the, sense of tremendous closeness. And practitioners are supposed to generate this kind of attitude toward everyone. And men, when they talk about these practices of compassion and reflect on how kind mothers were, they hold their hand to the breast and say they were feeding children and so forth. Because, it's very tactile. It's very tactile. And the difference between male and female is, because you were female in past lives and male in this life and female in the future, it's not so rigidly structured. And people can imagine themselves as male, female, whatever. But it's interesting that there are all these images of women, and then when there's a reference to compassion as being called male itself, being identified with the father. And the reason for this is not just because of the determination of what wisdom can produce, but because the they give an example of active compassion and say that's more likely to be male. The example given is there's a couple, and the child has fallen into a ditch. Who's going to jump in? Is it going to be the female or the male? I always assumed that this was purely sexist. And then my sister-in-law told the story of one of their children falling into the pool, and my brother was at some distance from the pool, but he got to the pool and jumped in before she did. There was a, the feeling was there, but not the jump, which is weird.
That would be my mom.
That would be your mom?
My mom would be screaming hysterically at my father to jump.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, I think you have the same parents.
So it seems various, right? And indeed, in terms of the nurturing of the child, you can say in general, isn't it more true that, the mother has the 90% of the burden? And that's action. That's action. And even the more important, I don't know, the daily action of 24 hours a day is more important, generally speaking, than maybe the one action of jumping in the ditch. So I think they were struggling to come up with an identification of compassion as male. Yes.
Well, it seems like this whole distinction between wisdom and method is artificial anyway. When you say, because method implies acting not randomly, but acting in an intelligent way. Therefore,
Yes.
there has to be some wisdom in method to start off with.
I think that's very true. One person that I studied with, there's this famous saying among some scholars that compassion is stupid. It doesn't realize anything. And he said, look, you do all of these reflective meditations, in which you reflect on, just as that one happens to want suffering, so everyone happens to want suffering. And, over the continuum of lifetimes, people have been born this way, that way, and so forth. We've been best of friends. And, you go through a whole lot of reflective, analytical meditations. He said, in the end, are you going to claim you don't realize anything? What you're realizing is that that it's it's right for you to take care of other beings. I think he was absolutely right. So that means compassion has a lot of smarts to it, all right? So then when they speak of compassion and wisdom, then this is a particular type of wisdom, a particular type. But that itself, as Chandrakirti says, will enhance compassion. It's not as if they operate in different spheres, or that compassion is stupid and sees beings as inherently existent, but wisdom sees them as non-existent, something like that.
Right.
Rather, when wisdom understands that we see ourselves as inherently existent, and on the basis of that, we draw ourselves into problems, then this opens up even more compassion, because you've seen the root of problems. You've seen that the root can be extricated. What Alex is talking about in terms of the smarts, the wisdom that's present in compassion, that's right there on the aspirational side. Because that's the height of the aspirational side is deciding to attain enlightenment in order to help others. That's only done after these complicated series of reflective meditations, analytical meditations on the relationship of oneself with other beings. Next. Yeah.
I have the impression that wisdom and method were reflections of the truth and form bodies of Buddha. Is that correct?
Yeah, a good way of putting it. You might put it the other way around too. That method being altruism, compassion, its reflection or imprint, result of the form bodies.
It's reciprocal.
Yes.
But so if we, and I also have the impression that wisdom was associated with the feminine principle? Is
Yes.
that correct?
Yes.
So where does that feminine, masculine polarity come from in relation to the form bodies of Buddha? The two bodies of Buddha. It seems like the exact opposite of what we find in Hinduism.
I think it is, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's just the other way around. And I don't know where it comes from. I mean, the claim is that because, as I was saying, because wisdom is the same in all three vehicles, then it's like the mother whose children's lineages are determined by the father. And the father here is the method. Whether you're seeking just to get out of liberation out of cyclic existence for yourself, or whether you're seeking to attain enlightenment for the sake of others. That's the claim of being where it comes from.
Is it just nominal?
Hmm?
Is it just a label? I mean, a nominal thing? I mean, couldn't you do the example the other way around too? If your kids and father with different...
Oh, well, they don't in Tibet. But it seems so superficial, doesn't it? That, I mean, it's, I guess what you're saying that a little bit of suspicion that the Hindus and Buddhists are often trying to be different from each other. And you never know who's first, really. We tend to have the prejudice that Hindu things are before Buddhist things, but I mean, Hinduism is older than Buddhism, no question. But not all aspects. There's a tremendous amount of interaction whether they were feeding off of each other. Yes?
In Tantra in Tibet, they draw a distinction between yoga with and without signs. And I'm just not familiar with that term, with and without signs.
With and without signs. With signs, in Action Tantra, for instance, is everything up to the concentration bestowing liberation at the end of sound. So without signs means where the main focus is on emptiness.
Okay, so with signs.
And so
with
these
form
are
and all.
signs, means hands and arms
Okay.
and face and back. When you talk about method and wisdom, it's just of what we've been saying so far. When you say, in order to do something, I'm going to do that, you don't call this method and wisdom one of these two, when you take all practices and divide them into method and wisdom. Now, you can take the word method, tap in Tibetan, and say, in order to bring this about, I'm going to do this. So your doing of this is a method to bring it about? Yes. But that's just a common usage of the term method. There's another meaning of the term method, which again gets confused, is a Buddha's skill in method, or skill in means, which means that a Buddha will teach anything if it'll help. And that again has nothing to do with the division of all practices into wisdom and method. That's sometimes confused. So the people end up saying that a Buddha's teaching on compassion and so forth is just a skillful means, you see? Because the same word is used. Method, skillful means, skillful method. So in Sanskrit, upaya is method or means, and upaya kaushalya is skill and means. So out of a Buddha's skill and means, a Buddha will teach all sorts of things. Will teach a permanent self, this and that, and so forth. So then people start thinking, oh, all practices are divided into method, upaya, and wisdom. Therefore, this upaya, they mistakenly think, means just some sort of temporary artifice, temporary, provisional teaching, whereas compassion, love, altruism are important in the beginning, middle, and end. They're right there in Buddhahood itself. They're not just provisional. Very important distinction. So then, let's turn to page 99 of the packet. Packet?
Page 99?
Yeah. I have not found when Tripitakamala lived, bottom of the page. Pudun lists many different ways of dividing Sutra and Tantra. And he begins with Tripitakamala. I don't have his dates. His division of Sutra and Tantra, his mode of dividing Sutra and Tantra by way of 4 features, is so popular that even though Tsongkhapa tears it apart, some of his own followers resurrect it 2 or 3 centuries later, supposedly with different meaning. It's just so widely quoted and widely known. So he says, though the object is the same, mantra treatises are superior. So the concern is not just with how sutra is different from Tantra, as we've said before, it's with establishing a hierarchy. Because of being, number 1, being for the non-obscure. 2, having many skillful methods. 3, having no difficulty. And 4, being created for those with sharp faculties. Tunjik Nayam. The first part. Tunjik Nayam Mamong Tang. Tapman. Gawam Ebatang. Ombo nombo onche be naki tekpa kebapa. Naki danger kebapa. Usually I can remember it. Today I remember it. So though the object is the same. Now what Pudun does is to paraphrase Tripitakamala's own explanation, which I have read and compared with his paraphrase and have found his paraphrase to be accurate. Similarly, with Tsongkhapa's paraphrase of Tripitakamala's presentation, there isn't anything inaccurate. So he says the mantra and perfection great vehicles do not differ with respect to the fruit described as non-dual omniscience. That's the first part of the statement, though the object is the same. The goal. The non-dual omniscience of Buddhahood. Though the goal is the same, the non-dual omniscience of Buddhahood in the perfection vehicle and in mantra. Okay? Now, Longchenpa quotes the same stanza. Everybody does. He gives it a different meaning, irrespective of what Tripitakamala said, which is his own creativity. Why not? Why not give it your own meaning? And he says, though the basis is the same, the basis for practicing the path, or like in Gelugpa terms, it would be the fundamental innate mind of clear light. I forget his exact terms. Well, let's get it. That's fine. Okay, right in the middle of 125, brief indication of how the Vajra vehicle surpasses the definition vehicle. He calls the perfection vehicle the definition vehicle, and he calls it external.
What's
Okay.
definition vehicle mean?
Well, I think it really means one's concerned with definitions. Your mode of procedure is to posit definiendums and, then state what their definitions are and debate about them, reflect on them.
Isn't that present though in the mantra group? I mean, in a lot of the Gelu.
Geluk, yes, but Nyingma, I think he's pointing to a different procedure itself here. Because he puts down inference over and over again. And he calls secret mantra internal, and he calls the definition vehicle external, more hierarchical language. When you do it in 2, you do external and internal. When you do it 3, you do external, internal, and secret. It's laughable after a while, and in another way, it's 3 qualities of product at Sears. You have good, better, and best when you buy a hose. It's a way of indicating what a particular group holds to be best. And I don't think any of these groups is any more or less hierarchical than the other. They're all extremely hierarchical, extremely. I don't think anyone can win the prize. They all won the prize a long time ago. They're never content with just pointing out what the differences are. It's what the hierarchy is, the hierarchy of differences. Although both are similar in ascertaining the essence of clear light. You see, that's the line from Tripitakamala. The basis, the essence of clear light, the essence of clear light that's present in all minds. One need only pay attention to it. That's the basis, and the phenomena that depend on it. They differ in terms of knowledge, in that the definition vehicle is obscured, but mantra is not. And then he goes on, okay? And so you see his layout in this first section here, which finishes on page 127, the first third. No, not that. Yeah, the first quote. Although the object or basis is the same, the mantra vehicle is superior. Tripitakamala, we need a light. Would somebody turn on one of the switches in the rear?
Is that when he, I didn't read the part in Longchenpa, but is that when he talks about the superiority of Vajradhara hood over Buddhahood? Is that,
It's somewhere in here.
that's
I
related?
forget where it is.
I'm still unclear, I mean, I guess we'll go for that. But it's still unclear
How something could be better than a Buddha?
and what in what way is it better? I mean, the Vajradhara hood. And some people call it the 11th Bhumi, and then
In the sutra system, there are 11 grounds. 10 of them are bodhisattva, and the 11th is Buddhahood. And then some people claim that Vajradharahood is beyond Buddhahood. And I'd have to read around to tell you how to expound on how. So you see, by taking Tripitakamala's line, though the object is the same, as meaning though the basis is the same, Longchenpa can hold that the result of the 2 paths is different. Okay? He throws a different interpretation on it. A little bit unfair. He's citing Tripitakamala, pretending he's talking about Tripitakamala, and Tripitakamala himself is indeed very clear on this point. There's no getting around saying that he's got a different reading on Tripitakamala. No, he just put his own reading on it. That's all right, as long as you know what he's doing. Okay, so back to Pudun's exposition of Tripitakamala himself. However, through 4 distinctive features, the mantra great vehicle just surpasses the perfection great vehicle. About the first of the 4, being for the non-obscure, what does Tripitakamala himself say? The skillful, having great compassion, upon analysis assume the supreme of methods. Looking down on ordinary methods, they attain a state of non-fluctuation. That's his verse exposition, and then he has a prose exposition, which is what Pudun paraphrases. When bodhisattvas, there's the paraphrase, practicing the perfection vehicle. Pudun wrote out, I think it was the Dengyur by hand. How many volumes?
Dengyur?
Yeah. Was it the Dengyur that he wrote out by hand?
He redacted it. I don't know if he wrote it out.
No, he wrote it out by hand. And it was kept at his monastery, and when the Chinese communists came, they burned it. Just, you just can't. It's like unbelievable. Huh? When bodhisattvas practicing the perfection vehicle engage in giving and so forth, with regard to those deeds, they dwell in perfection of wisdom by way of a purification of misconceptions about the object of giving, the giver, and the fruit accrued by the giver. The inherent existence of these. Okay? Wisdom realizes the absence, whereby they are not very obscure. There's a difference of between mantra and perfection, and the mantra people are not obscured, and perfection people are obscured. But I'm not saying they're very obscure, okay? Because they do realize the absence of inherent existence. But, now what's Tsongkhapa's answer to this? Give a Tsongkhapa type of response. You're suggesting that hearers and solitary realizers don't realize the absence of inherent existence of these phenomena. You with me? You're suggesting that by saying, well, perfection vehicle people realize the absence of inherent existence, therefore they're not very obscured. The suggestion is that the other 2 vehicles are obscured. But now, Tsongkhapa's view is that all 3 vehicles realize the same emptiness. Nevertheless, because they engage in external giving and so forth, and are not of shock faculties, they complete the collection of merit and wisdom over a long period. So what's Tsongkhapa's objection? Oh, you read this? Yes?
It's very similar rhetoric to what we just saw with Longchenpa. He's using externality as being the lowest form and is going to posit an internal form of giving that is mentally based as being a higher practice.
Mm-hmm.
It's informed by a wisdom that doesn't conceive of the objects of giving as inherently existing.
Excuse me?
I suppose maybe that's not correct, because they all, I suppose if they all realized the absence of inherent existence, maybe they wouldn't have that problem, but it seems like the highest giving, you don't conceive of agent, object, and gift as different, right? Inherently different.
Yeah, which bodhisattvas do realize, according to Tripitakamala, and he's talking about bodhisattvas here. So even though it's external giving, this internal understanding goes along with it. So that's not Tsongkhapa's criticism. Yes?
Tsongkhapa quotes Shantideva.
Exactly.
And says that in the perfection vehicle, the perfection of giving is not so much fulfilling the needs of others, but purifying your ideas of being stingy and miserly.
Yes. So it's full development of the attitude of generosity. And so Shantideva raises a rhetorical question. If Well, since there are still poor people in the world, how can it be said that Shakyamuni Buddha attained enlightenment? You know, fulfill the perfection of giving. So that's like the stupid person asking the question, right? And Shantideva answers the question and says, oh, the perfection of giving doesn't mean that you have to fulfill the wants and needs of all beings in the cosmos. It means you fulfill the attitude of, bring to perfection the attitude of generosity, which of course means you engage in a hell of a lot of giving, external giving also. So, Tripitakamala is in the position of the stupid person asking Shantideva that question, right? Because Tripitakamala is assuming that in the perfection vehicle, giving is perfected by doing things externally, right?
I don't understand why that's implied in Tripitakamala's. I mean,
Because that's how he describes the perfection vehicle, as attempting, these bodhisattvas are attempting to fulfill the perfection of giving by giving away their head and so forth, as he says. Now, it's a particularly strong example. And nobody's saying that it's wrong to give away your head. You've got to get over that to begin with. If he said your finger, it would be a lot easier to understand. That as if by giving away fingers, you could fulfill a perfection of giving. Head is just an example of giving of physical giving. A minor example.
But it's not that you should not, is it? Is he saying that in the mantra you should not do that?
He's saying that bodhisattvas in the perfection vehicle they're attempting to just give, and it just doesn't work. And what you do is in meditative stabilization, you imagine tremendous giving that satisfies everyone.
So then how would he approach the jhatikas?
So the shift, well, that's non-mantra vehicle.
Right.
What about it?
But I mean, it's also the Buddha who did it, and if the Buddha is seen as...
Oh, I suppose it's stories about how he did it in earlier stages of the path and eventually did it by way of mantra. So in other words, Tripitakamala is making bodhisattvas of the perfection vehicle a lot dumber than they are, according to Shantideva, according to Tsongkhapa. However, bodhisattvas practicing the mantra vehicle analyze what the method for completing the perfection of giving and so forth is. You know, they're smart. They analyze. They just don't go out and give away all over the place, cutting off their fingers and their head and so forth. Whereby they understand that since giving away one's head and so forth cannot fulfill simultaneously the wants of all beings. Now, these bodhisattvas of the perfection vehicle are really dumb. They think that by giving away their head once, they can simultaneously fulfill the welfare of all beings. You know, I mean, come on, give them a break. But it's really odd. You know, you would think this was a straw man, Tripitakamala. But it is, you know, I was amazed when I turned to his own text. This is just what he says. Yes. So therefore, such giving does not go beyond the mundane, and hence is not a perfection, that is to say, a transcendence. Looking down on that method, the mantra practitioners seek the supreme methods. What is it? Now, this is, in mantra, there does seem to be a shift from, let's see, what can I say? A shift to more emphasis on meditative stabilization. Is that, I don't know if that's right or not. There's a hell of a lot of meditation in the sutra system, right? Correction vehicle. But of imagining the fulfilling of wants through meditative stabilization. It's really hard to draw these lines. Since the supreme methods, is none other than meditative stabilization, Endow with an essence of method and wisdom. Those skilled in means, these special practitioner mantra, upon generating compassion for limitless beings, thoroughly realize meditative civilization, non-dual method, wisdom, having an essence of limitless objects. In other words, you imagine limitless number of beings, and you fulfill their wants simultaneously. It is fabulous. And it must have a tremendous effect on the personality. You know, if you think, we were talking earlier about the Vajrasattva meditation, where even you're taking crud that's inside of your body, like oil, crude oil, and by the time it reaches the beings, it's refined into whatever they want. Even take these resources and simultaneously, so to speak, fulfill the welfare of a huge number of beings.
Could you apply Tripitakamala's critique of perfection vehicle, saying that, well, if it's really helping, how come there's all these poor people, to mantra by saying, look, if this is really helping, how come there's all these poor people?
What he's saying is the mantra people are smart enough to know that you won't be able to fulfill the external needs of all beings. You need to do, you need to do this through meditative stabilization, I guess.
Or one, maybe that their methods are neither, perfection methods are neither necessary nor sufficient.
It doesn't get into such subtleties as this to tell you, like, well, you still need to engage in external giving. You just don't hear about it.
That's not implied.
Well, I would think it was implied, but he's suspiciously not hearing it, which makes sense to be suspicious and not.
Just to say a little bit more about the danger to me is particularly when Vajrayana has often said that it is that it's such a difficult path, is if you think that you're doing this correct, you may think you're doing this practice correctly, when in fact you're not able to do the mental practice correctly, so you're not even doing the lower vehicle practice.
Oh yes, yes, that's nice. You're not developing the attitude of generosity. Through cultivating it uninterruptedly and without partiality in terms of the directions. If you come from the south, you don't just do it for people in the south or the north. They fully develop abandonment of obstructions and realization of self-dispersion from Lama, whereby they, like wish-granting jewels, completely fulfill the wants of all sentient beings. Oh my, he is claiming it.
Right, so that's where I would bring in the critique of, well, there's still poor people and there's still people suffering now. So, is it really?
Hence, since this is a method superior to the ordinary giving of one's head and so forth, keeps going to head, you know? Be so much easier if he said foot. Because immediately you think, oh, that's crazy. But it's not the idea is not that it's a crazy form of giving and you shouldn't do it. Although when the perfection of giving is taught, and physical giving is taught, you're first taught that it's great to give away your body. And you imagine this and so forth. And then at the end of it, the teacher carefully says, you have to do this at the proper time, when you're developed to the point where you can do this. And in the meantime, practice with giving away things like pennies and nickels and quarters. So just this, he's willing to say, completes. It's very facile, isn't it? The perfection of ethics. There are 3 forms of ethics: bringing about the welfare of sentient beings, ethics, composite of virtuous activities, and the ethics of restraining ill deeds. You know, there are these divisions of ethical systems into negative ones and positive ones, and those that have positive precepts look down on those religions, look down on hierarchy that just have negative ones. Right? So here we have everything.
And vice versa.
Hmm?
And vice versa.
Hmm. Well, the ones with just negative look down on the ones with positive?
Yeah, why not?
You're saying why not, but do they? Effort. I think they tend to claim they have both negative and positive.
Yeah, who has just negative?
Well, when you think of the 10 non-virtues in Buddhism, I mean, there are corresponding positive ones. Not killing, but sustaining life. But usually you just get not killing.
Or just systems that are involved with negative duty, the idea of negative duties as opposed to.
Negative duties. Hmm. Effort, concentration, wisdom. It's almost tiresome, isn't it? And through that, you can complete the other 4 of the 10 perfections, not just the 6. So then the second, having many skillful methods. In order to achieve well the aims of all sentient beings, the teacher of transmigrators, the Buddha, taught to the intelligent, that means the people practicing mantra, all methods, the supreme modes, dividing them into 4 types as the 4 tantras. In other systems, the sutra approaches, what do we have? We have asceticism, we have vows of restraint. You see, when actually you look at tantric practices, there's all sorts of asceticism. There's all sorts of restraint. Can you imagine? I mean, even to sit in the lotus posture for 4 hours, isn't that a restraint? Are described as methods for achieving high status within cyclic existence and liberation from cyclic existence. But all sentient beings cannot practice these. Now wait a minute. You said mantra was for the intelligent. Now you're saying it's for people, it's also for people who can't practice these harder things. Tsongkhapa disagrees entirely. He says mantra is for those, indeed for the superior type of being, but it's not for them because they couldn't practice the lower forms, but because they're so intent upon bringing about the other beings' welfare that they want to do it faster. They're completely capable of doing the lower. It sounds as if I'm taking Tsongkhapa's side on this, but I'm trying to draw the contrast. Since some course, in very peaceful actions, these practices were set forth in terms of them, but these cannot take care of all beings. However, secret mantra was taught in order to join all sentient beings to virtue. Concerning this, either oneself or a Lama, either you or your guru, determines your nature. Are you obscured? Is that your main problem? Desire? Hateful? Prideful? What are the 5? I'm missing one.
Jealousy.
It is jealousy? Do you know? Within, sort of confused and desire and hate and pride, and if the other one's jealousy, what your dominant afflictive emotion is, do you know right away? I won't ask. Sometimes I feel with me it's all 5. So now, one way of finding out is, this is done through analyzing dreams. What are you dreaming about? Everybody's smiling at this point. Dropping a flower, you take a square board, divide it into quadrants with a center, and you drop a flower petal in the middle, and like a feather, it goes down like this to one of the quadrants, and each of them corresponds to one of the 5 types of afflictive emotions. So it's sort of like, if you can't figure it out yourself, you can't analyze your dreams, then we'll drop a petal on a flower. Then constructing seals, that's really, I don't know how. You know, I don't know how that would tell you anything. Seals means like hand symbols. I haven't the faintest idea how that could tell you what afflictive emotion was predominant. And by way of noticing predominant styles of behavior, I put that last, I put it first. How often do you get pissed off, you know? What you're like when you wake up, when you're napping, when somebody wakes you up. Or, hi, good to see you. Having recognized, having identified the predominant afflictive emotions such as desire, in which you predominantly chorus, you also identify the deity who's the lord of your lineage. Okay? There's a deity is associated with each lineage. If desire is predominant, you generate the mind's and mental factors of desire as Amitabha. And having made offerings to Amitabha, enters by way of mindfulness of his mantra and seal, hand gesture, into the meditative stabilization as the mode of great desire. With a nature of joy pervaded by compassion, all conceptions are abandoned. Similarly, okay, so let's skip that paragraph, down to the next paragraph. I just want to get you into some of this, because it's tough sledding. As we were saying last time, the eyes glaze over. For those who cannot set the mind in this way on the mind and mental factors, we go to something that's coarser, go to speech. Meditative stabilization of exalted vajra speech is taught. Now in Action Tantra, that's not how it went.
Right.
I suppose it was. Mind is the most subtle. Speech is less subtle.
Oh,
And body, yeah, okay.
Opposite way.
Yeah. Homa Hung are respectively the essence mantras of Vairochana, Amitabha, and Akshobhya. Blah, blah, blah. First new paragraph, page 102. For those who are attached to gross objects, can't you see it? And who initially cannot apply themselves to meditation on the subtle, mental or verbal, or gross body mandala is taught. Okay, so there's a whole variety of methods. Then, bottom of the page. Non-difficulty. The subduer set forth the ultimate object, the desired aim that is attained through making application in accordance with just what one desires. Now there's a difficult back and forth discussion, so let's skip to the bottom of page 103. Furthermore, it is as follows. The best among those with the best faculties. So these would be the people who practice highest yoga tantra in its highest form, who have few afflictive emotions, and little conceptuality, but have great compassion, and are making effort to seek suchness, are taught the great seal of indivisible emptiness and compassion, without reference, without usage of external and internal activities, such as imagining a consort or using an actual consort. So no sex for the highest type of practitioner. What does Tongva say?
Sex.
Sex. Give me sex. Highest practitioner, sex. Why?
Because you use the subtle consciousness, the bliss of the subtle consciousness to realize emptiness.
Okay. And why do you need sex then?
Because in sex, the consciousness is, isn't it that the consciousness is the most subtle, or at the moment of orgasm or something like that?
So what you have to do is, with the various types of consciousnesses, ride on winds, these energies. And you have to withdraw them as they are withdrawn in death. And the claim is the only way to withdraw them as they are in death is to use sex, to use orgasm. Because the involvement of the mind in bliss is so intense. You know, if you're enjoying it. Right? Now you see, almost Tripitakamala's idea of sex is to use sex in the path if you can't, you know, you're too distracted. So it's like it's not like that's withdrawing your consciousness or using that consciousness to realize emptiness. Rather, it's that you're getting used to being in the sexual situation and thinking about things like emptiness and so forth, so that you can get beyond it. And we do that a lot. Anybody who does, who has a fear of driving or planes or whatever, you gradually introduce yourself to it. It's not like you take that fear of flying itself and realize something with it. So they've got diametrically opposed ideas about what it means to use desire in the path. Diametrically.
They being who?
Tripitakamala, who wants to use desire in the path only for those people who are distracted by it. Whereas Tsongkhapa, in fact, wants to use it for, it's actually people who aren't distracted by it. Who are highly capable with respect to realizing emptiness, but who need the extra boost of this stronger consciousness, stronger, more profound consciousness. So it's as if Tripitakamala, and you really have to face it, that he never heard about this. Here he is, this great Indian source that everybody's citing, but it appears that he's never heard the type of tradition that Tsongkhapa was writing from. So then he has a series of practitioners, and when you get down toward the bottom, you finally get, you know, in the middle you're imagining a consort, and if you're still distracted, then you use an actual consort, right? Whereas for Tsongkhapa, it's just turned the other way around. You imagine, and then finally, when you're capable of the highest type of practice, you use an actual consort. So they're not talking about the same thing. They're different systems. And I can see the value in what Tripitakamala is talking about. You know, if you're too distracted by chocolate cake, go out and stick your face in it and think about impermanence and, you know, right? Suffering and emptiness, and it helps you right in the midst of that activity to bring the religious right into the midst of it would be very helpful.
What lineage is he from?
Who knows? I can't find out about it. There's a mention in Snowgrove. Could somebody please find out about this? He has a... Does anybody know offhand where Tsongkhapa treats Tripitakamala here? The page number? Yeah, I saw it today as I was reading this.
There's a section of His Holiness's introduction.
Okay.
Because could it be just a matter of, obviously it's a matter of perspective from what lineage he's coming from, right? I mean, the whole
Page 224 of Snowgrove, Buddhist Himalaya. Buddhist Himalaya.
Right.
The Advaya Vajra Sangraha page 21, lines 12 to 13, quotes this passage. And whether that would be, would help us find out something about Tripitakamala, I don't know.